That's it. So now we're a bit more formal. My name's Orit Azaz, for those of you who don't know me. And I'm an independent artistic director and facilitator, and I'm going to talk a bit more about what that means. Today's session is titled Creating the Conditions for Ambitious Projects Through Partnerships and Collaboration. There's a longer version, which is with arts and non-arts partners. And what I'd like to do is to just share with you a little bit my experience, some of the experiences that I've had of working in partnerships. I am a freelance creative, but part of my role involves creating the conditions for ambitious projects to happen. And I've gained some experiences that have given me confidence in doing that. And that's what I want to share with you. And the reason that I put myself forward for this session is really because I want it to be useful for you. So please make it useful for you. Ask the questions to make it relevant. I'm telling you a story in the hope that there's some useful threads in there that we can pick up afterwards. And I'm going to try not to talk for too long because I'm much more interested in what you're trying to do and how we can help each other for you to do that rather than spend the whole time with me talking about myself. I mean, of course, I'm happy to do that, but I'd rather that it was about you. So I've made a little presentation to keep me on track. I invited you to watch a film of a piece of work that I thought might help to set the scene for the story that I'm going to tell you. That's the what next of that project. Forgive me while I fiddle about for a moment with my screen sharing thing. I think it's going to be this one. Let's see. I'm hoping that you can now see the title slide, and I can't see you anymore, so don't know what to do about that. I guess you'll just tell me. Just shout if you can't see. Is it going to work? Can I move forward? Yes. So the structure of today I thought would be welcome and introductions. We've just done that. I wanted to talk a little bit about the different names that I use to describe the role that I play as a freelancer. I wanted to talk through some case studies and then answer any questions, although we can do that all the way through, and then focus on what ideas or interests you have that might benefit from collaborating with particularly non-arts partners. And then it would be great to get your feedback on this session as well. So I wanted to start by just sharing some relevant beginnings. I've been working professionally for, well, it's probably 35 years now, which is quite a difficult thing to say out loud, but luckily I can't see your faces, so I can only see the words on my screen. I began as a theatre director and theatre maker. I decided I didn't really want to do direct plays in theatres, that I wanted to make theatre that happened in community and non-conventional spaces. I formed a company called The Common Sense quite near the beginning of my professional life. And actually the idea of the common sense is the thing that it's a massively important thread from then to now. And what I was excited and interested to do was to work in a range of different community contexts to create theatre that would be relevant and meaningful to the people of that context, of that place. So the work would be created in a relationship with audiences, and also to experiment with a form of theatre so that and then I was interested to create a kind of theatrical experience that was all around you. Now you would call it immersive and interactive, but then we didn't use those words. It was just that my experience of life was that it wasn't on a plate for you and a nice stage in front of you. It was all around you and you had to make choices. And that's what I was trying to do with video and live camera technology and music, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, that idea of working in community contexts I fell into, which is really the story of my whole life, and I'm not going to tell you all of it, only a few relevant bits, is just falling into things. Someone said, hey, do you want to do this? And I said yes. And one of the things that I said yes to was working as a theatre maker in the context of private sector organisations. At the time, the buzz idea was future scenario planning, and theatre was a very good medium for providing a provocation and a foil to that. And somehow it led me to do things like be an artist in residence at Pearl Assurance in Peterborough for 6 months and create a series of projects with, I mean, I hesitate to say their name now, but post office counters who are now a massive scandal, but this was slightly before all that happened, and Royal Mail. So I suppose I tell you that because I gained a confidence in being a person. I was really young. I was in my mid-20s, that I had a taste of being taken seriously as a creative thinker in these massive organizations. And I was contracted by and reported to the director of strategy in those huge companies. And I honestly, if I look back, I don't really know why that was, or what. Maybe they thought maybe I was like the youth voice or something. But anyway, I had this taste of being important in a very senior context, and that gave me a lot of confidence. And around the same time, I met John Latham and Barbara Stavini, who were the founders of something called the Artist Placement Group. And the Artist Placement Group formed in the late 1960s, and they negotiated a treaty with Whitehall for the placement of artists in government offices and as part of large sort of governmental reviews, in which the artist would be what John Latham was also a philosopher described as an incidental person, a person who was going to offer a perspective that was different and other from the perspectives of the paid professionals. And the deal was that the artist would be paid at the same rate as any other professional. And you can look them up, Artist Placement Group. Their archive is held, I think it's Goldsmiths in London, I'm not sure, but if you look them up, you'll see. And John had this idea that really stayed with me, which is context is half the work. It's the idea that you go into a context and you're empty. You wait, you learn, you ask questions, you see what's happening, and then you wait to see what ideas come up. And that has really been a massively important idea through what's happened to me next. And then one other relevant beginning that I want to share with you in terms of this question of building partnerships was I came to the West Midlands to work on a project that was originally called the Jubilee Arts Cplex project and eventually became the Public. It was then an incredible new arts building project in West Bromwich, which had never had anything like that before. It was the centre of a town master planning and investment programme. And it was dedicated to collaborative and participatory arts practice. So it was really the beacon, the lighthouse of this practice that we all do, but also of the lottery funding for the arts, which had begun a bit before that. And Sylvia King, who was the director, believed that the artistic leaders of the organisation should also be responsible for the money. She believed that that's the only way to empower artist-led work. And so I was one of 5 artistic directors. I was responsible for live arts and performance. And we had to generate, between us, we had to build partnerships and generate income to pay the staff. Sorry for the repetition in the text on the screen. There's not going to be many slides that just have text on. So those were a few like random scattered beginnings, but I wanted you to understand that as a person who started as a theatre maker and theatre director, I had to learn how to do stuff, and I had a set of experiences that made me feel confident that I have something to offer and that the artist has a distinctive role in society, which is not quite the same as being the maker of the work, but also as the bringer of an independent and highly useful and valuable perspective at all levels of society, including board level at Post Office Counters Limited, for example. So this all happened to me very early on, and since then, I go and I do I sometimes call myself all of these things, and I just thought it'd be useful to mention it. So, and to tell you what I mean by those in case that can be helpful for you. So I'm a freelancer. I'm definitely not the artistic director of an organisation. I work as the artistic director of a project or a programme. And that means that it's my idea. I lead the idea having, and I involve other partners and collaborators, and we co-create. But ultimately, the quality of the art rests with me. And it's, I suppose, yeah, somehow it's my idea, and I identify myself as the lead artist. Let's say artist director stroke lead artist. Creative director is a little bit different. Sometimes I just use that because in non-arts context, people don't know what an artistic director is. So creative director feels a bit more easy to grasp. But if I were responding to a context, so for example, in 2013, Birmingham Cathedral approached me and said they wanted to do some arts stuff to celebrate their 300th anniversary, and would I help them think about it? And I said, okay, sure. And in that context, I called myself creative director, because I'm basically working to someone else's brief, even though I wrote the brief, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. But that's how I differentiate those. Artistic facilitator is to say that I'm collaborating with other artists and I'm enabling their work while providing a kind of artistic framework, or trying to helping to shape and make it coherent. Facilitator is where I'm not doing that last bit. I'm merely, you're organizing an event and you want somebody to hold the conversation, to facilitate the meeting, and so sometimes I call myself that. Convener is I like that word. It's come about more recently and I slightly prefer it to facilitator. It's being a bit more active in the bringing of people together to share ideas and conversations, and that's my absolute passion. So I'm drawn to that word. Consultant, sometimes people pay me to have ideas for them and I just do that. That's it. Critical friend, a bit the same, except a bit more hand-holdy, a bit less confrontational, only a bit less. Collaborator, well, I think everyone would know what that means, but I guess it's we share the creating of the ideas together. We're working together to make something. And I've deliberately not called this creative producer and rather creative producing, because all of these have an element of creative producing. You're creating the conditions. I am, anyway, my work in this, I'm creating the conditions for something to happen. And the thing that happens might not involve me, and that's fine. But the business of bringing the world, mixing the world together so it can happen, I'm excited by that, and I see that as part of my role. And I've grown into being able to say that to you out loud through those other experiences that I've had. Before I jump in then to a story of an actual project and a process and how this all worked, I just wonder if anyone has any questions at this point. No, not so far. Donna, hello, welcome. I hope that you're following the story so far. I'm going to reshare.
I'm just going to jump off for that half an hour that I need to jump off for, so I'll be back. Okay. But just keep an eye in case anybody else joins us.
I will. It shows big on my screen when someone else comes, so I'll try and remember. In fact, maybe Alex, would you mind if I make you a co-host as well, and then if I'm not letting somebody in, then you'll. Is that all right? Thanks a lot. See you in a bit, Sophie. I'm going back to the plot now. So I hope that you had a chance to see the video link that Katie shared with you about a project in which I worked with Imagineer Productions, who are based in Coventry, and they are very good. The now she's not the former, how do I say, the former CEO, Jane Height, is an absolute genius at building partnerships to create the conditions for things to happen, and she would call herself a creative producer and an executive producer in that, but she has performed a miracle since the company received a massive amount of funding to create a giant Lady Godiva puppet as part of the Cultural Olympiad in 2012, and then immediately lost their MPO funding and had to find a way to survive without that money, but with this giant puppet and loads of massive ideas and experience. So I learned a lot from her, and the project that they wanted to do did involve building a bridge. Let me see if I can. Oh, my computer's decided not to. Come on. Yeah, there. So for those who didn't get to see the film, I'm not going to talk about it a lot, but it involved making this giant broken bridge. It was funded through an Arts Council stream called Ambition for Excellence. And this bridge provided a temporary venue as well as a public artwork for a range of different collaborative activities in partnership and in collaboration with local community groups and local producers. Essentially, we were inviting public and local community groups and individuals to put themselves in the picture of the broken bridge and make of themselves a bridge builder, if you want. As part of that project, we made a kit inspired by Leonardo da Vinci's design for a self-supporting bridge, and that's what you can see. I hope it's in the bottom left corner of those four. And the idea with that was that community groups could put themselves forward to host a bridge building event in their neighbourhood, and the rules were that they had to build it outside in a public space where other people would see it, so that it was sort of performative, and that the process would involve people who wouldn't normally do that kind of thing together. So the bridge building would be bridge building. And that image of the Leonardo da Vinci bridge, which is self-supporting, you could build it in about an hour and a half, and then it takes people's weight without any fixing. So it's a good spectacle, a good playground activation thing. It was also the finale image of a circus theatre show that happened on top of the large broken bridge. So it was a very important image within the context of bridge, but actually that way of being in the world, of having an invitation that meant that people could make their own meaning from it, we were very excited by that. And I want to tell you the story of what happened next and who got involved. So this story began itself as called Bridge 2. Off we went to the Birmingham Commonwealth Games cultural festival team. They weren't called that, they weren't called anything. They'd only just arrived in their jobs and said, hey, we've got an idea. Our idea is starting with this bridge kit thing. And what we want to do is invite people to design and build structures in outdoor neighborhood spaces in their own locality, and then bring all the component parts together to make a great giant bridge sized installation in a central public space. But we couldn't make it of the material that the bridge kits were made of, because what you can see there, they're made of playground wood and it's pretty heavy. So we embarked on an inquiry, and this is now the beginning of lockdown in March 2020. What material can we use to enable people to design and build structures that can then come together to form a large-scale installation? And we talked to a range of different designers and engineers from different disciplines, and that was the question that we asked them, including maybe it could be a virtual material rather than a real one. So I think we talked to about 5 or 6 different people who worked in really different contexts: a circus engineer, a digital artist, a light-based artist. I thought maybe it might be a light-based work. I mean, you can kind of picture the possibilities. And as part of that, I had a notion about bamboo, because when we tried to lift the playground wood bridge onto our giant bridge, it was much too heavy, and when we dropped it, and it broke into loads of pieces. So we had to find something else to make it out. It was made of bamboo. So I also went through my network of anybody I've ever met to say, does anybody know anybody who knows anything about bamboo? And I was really fortunate to be introduced to an incredible guy, and his name is Neil Thomas. And he's the co-founder and co-director of a structural engineering company called Atelier One. And they're based in London. And what they do is structural engineering for rock and roll, like the big stadium tours, and for opening ceremonies, like the Olympic opening ceremony and the opening ceremony of our Commonwealth Games in Birmingham. So they're kind of art-minded. But the main thing about Neil is that he's absolutely passionate about bamboo as the future sustainable building material for the planet. So partly it was good luck that I got through to him, because I think that if it hadn't been lockdown and we hadn't all been at home, he would have been much too busy to talk to me, and the email would have just gone into the junk. But he did, and he was so exciting and so excited that emboldened me to think about a bamboo. And the project that had been called Bridge 2, we then called it Bridge to Bamboo. And we talked to the Commonwealth Games again and the people, and they said, this was Tim, for those who ever talked to that team. Radine and Louisa hadn't got there yet. Tim said, oh, I don't know. I don't think it's a nice idea, but we don't want to do a project where you have to ship the material from the other side of the world. So I went back to Neil, and he said, oh, don't worry about that. The bamboo you need for this project grows in Stoke. So I told them, and they said, great, Stoke, that's in the West Midlands, brilliant. We'll grow the stuff, and then you'll do a project with it, and that will be all, very exciting and fantastic. So on we went, and they helped us to get funding for a research phase in, I think this was 2021, in parallel with the second phase of Bridge as it happened. And as you see, we called it Bridge to Bamboo. And just as an aside, so you can follow this thread, you might be going, oh, she's not going to talk about bamboo for 25 minutes. I hope it won't be for that long, but just so you're in the picture, the reason that people are so enthusiastic about it is because it's a grass and not a tree. So that means that it grows to its full height and steel comparable strength in 4 years, not 44 years like a tree. And when you cut it, then some others grow in their place. You haven't killed it; it just keeps growing and growing and growing. So it's constantly regenerating, and it has an incredible carbon capture capability because of that. And it's also very, very useful for lots of different things. But it's native to every continent except Europe. that means we don't really know what to do with it in the UK, and we didn't really know what sorts were even growing here. So our inquiry became, okay, if this is this very important sustainable material, what does that mean for us in the UK where it's not native? And what can we design, make, build, imagine, play with the kinds of bamboo that either do or could grow here? And I don't want you to be bored with the text, so I'm going to show you some lovely pictures, which was essentially we assembled inspirational images. And I use this, the showing of inspirational images, as a big part of the creating the conditions for things to happen. So I'm just going to share with you some. In the end, we called it, I probably shouldn't say this because we're recording, but we called it our bamboo porn Pinterest board, because every image was like, oh, it was so nice. Anyway, here we go. I'm not going to talk about them. I'm just going to show you loveliness. That made us feel that this project really could happen, that these are the kind of things that could be built either in neighborhoods or in a central space in the city centre or somewhere wonderful, or as a bridge. Oh, that's so beautiful. It's all fabulous, and here's a large scale thing, and we wanted to do a takeover of Birmingham city centre that looked like this, that turned it all into a beautiful social space and venue, and you kind of get the picture of how we use these pictures to tell it. And we secured some funding from the British Council to collaborate with bamboo specialists from bamboo growing countries, mostly in the Commonwealth. So that Commonwealth context provided us with an opening for engaging with people from somewhere else, but also with a context for shining a light on expertise from the global south. So I was very excited by that Commonwealth context and how we could work with that to shift the power of knowledge and to deal more respectfully with Indigenous engineering and craft expertise from particularly the global south. So we met some people. Neil introduced to someone, we did some Google searching, we met a guy who knows everybody, who's part of the World Bamboo Organization, which is a network of bamboo loving professionals from different disciplines. And we said, can you introduce us to some like-minded people who might want to be part of a kind of a lab, a creative lab online? And so the like-minded Hans Friedrich introduced us to the like-minded Rebecca Rubens and Bernice Dapper from Rhizome Design in India and Ghana Bamboo Bikes, respectively. And Neil connected us. So we were connected to these people by people we knew and people we didn't know. But we knew what we were asking. We wanted like-mindedness, and we wanted to explore our question. That led to an immersive lab. Maybe we did 6 half-day sessions online in which we were also trying to impart creative making skills as part of it. But we brought together both the experts who wouldn't normally meet each other and artist makers from the UK who had been put forward by some cultural sector partners. So we'd already started talking beyond Birmingham and talking to other people who said, oh, I'd like to be involved in that. How can we get involved? And we said, I'll send an artist. You pay the artist to come to the lab and then to do a pilot R&D project. So that's what happened. The artists who took part in the lab, the UK artists who'd met these incredible professionals, then went on to lead, the equivalent of 3-4 days worth of engagement with local groups in their area and do something. So they did something. I think we did 5 of those projects. 3 of them were making projects. Some of them led to actual work. If you see bottom right, that was at Festival of Thrift 2021, led by Pete Gunson in the yellow T-shirt, who is the co-director of an outdoor arts touring company called Piff Paff. So just to give you a flavour, this wasn't all performing arts. It was all sorts of different makers and people. We worked with a digital artist called Ling Tan. We wanted to explore a digital dimension, and we built a connection with the University of Birmingham and Winterbourne House and Garden that was around growing. I mean, honestly, I don't know anything about growing. I kill all plants. So this was so scary for me. They were probably the most scary people going to talk to growing experts, and they still are a little bit. I'm not going to tell you what that project was. I just want to give you a flavour of this sort of open, exploratory approach to responding to this question and building partnerships. And we began an experimental partnership with No Fit State Circus, who I should confess I have worked with them for 20 years as a collaborator, as a director, as chair of the board, of all sorts of things. But I hadn't worked with them for a long time, so it was a bit of a cold call. I'm doing this, what do you think? And they were like, actually, that does sound interesting, because they said, we have a partner, Circus Zambia, and they have a real problem with training people in aerial circus because they can't afford the equipment. But if you could figure out how to make an aerial rig out of bamboo, then they have that, and they could build, you know, they had a reason. It wasn't just that they like me, or they thought it was like, yeah, maybe there's a context for us. So all of this first stage experimenting led us to submit an application to the Arts Council and a proposal to the Birmingham 2022 Festival. Let me tell you that the first idea was a project, an £1 million project. And what we ended up doing, for a long assortment of reasons, it wasn't going to happen in Birmingham, then it was going to happen in Coventry, then it wasn't going to happen in Coventry, then it was too late to raise more money, then okay, so we've got to just do what we can. And it ended up being a project that was around 200,000, and it was called the Imagine Bamboo Summit. And oops, I'd like to, hang on a minute, I'm going to ask you a question and see what the time is. I'm just going to jump out of here and see, are you still with me, everybody? So far, so relevant? Okay. I was going to show you a little film, but actually just want to get through this so that you can talk and link this with you. So the next thing that I'm not going to show you is a tiny film, but I think I'll just show you some pictures from what it was and gallop on to the end of the story. Is that okay? Yeah, cool. Right, let me see if I can make my technology work again. I'm going to take a little moment before it allows me to progress. Hello? Okay, I'm going to have to do that all again. I'm really sorry. I think the PowerPoint doesn't like it when you do that. How about now? Let's try. Hoping you can see the slide. I'm galloping through this film that I'm not showing you. Sunset Park is a beautiful regeneration park in Birmingham city centre that nobody knows about. So that was a very interesting place to try to build partnerships. And we found our way to the original landscape architects who joined us in the event, and was really supportive of the project, really helped. So again, we were making friends through finding like-minded souls for whom the project did some work for them in ways that we couldn't imagine or have articulated, because it was so far outside our experience. The big idea of this was the creation of a giant arch. I didn't go back over the story about whether the bamboo from Stoke, it's not completely relevant to this, but let me just say it didn't come from Stoke. We had to spend a lot of time looking for it, asking people to introduce us to other people, but eventually we found a grower of bamboo in Shropshire who was growing a type of bamboo that he believes is the most appropriate for growing at scale in the UK. It's called Burinda bamboo, and what you see here, that was an arch, a 6-metre high arch made of Burinda bamboo that 2 months before had been growing in a woodland in Shropshire. It's a grass, and it's inspired by the Wembley Arch. So by the time it was built, it was literally knitted over 3 days in front of the public, commentated upon like it was a live documentary, and then a whole bunch of people who had been involved in making it then lifted it into place, and the lifting into place was part of the spectacle and the load testing. It was conceived of as a swing for the public, but unfortunately it took so long to make it. It was like a first prototype. We'd never done it before, so it took a bit longer than we thought, and not that many people got to swing on it, although I think Katie Holton and her sister did get to swing on it because they won the hula hooping competition. Anyway, don't ask, a whole other story. You can see that the bamboo circus R&D was continuing as well. In 22, the focus was on that Burinda bamboo. But just notice the structure to the right, which is made of a slightly fatter bamboo, because that will come back in the story in a minute. I think what we said was, oh, we really need some tall structures. Michael's the grower from Shropshire. Do you know anybody who can get us some bamboo? And he said, well, I do know someone who's growing bamboo in their tiny pocket garden in the centre of Oxford. I think they've got some. And I'll ask if they're prepared to cut some and give it to you. And they were, and they gave us those 16 canes of a different type of bamboo. It's called Philostachus, which is Philostachus dulcis, which is a bit bigger, a bit chunkier, and a bit stronger. You can see we invited people to run away with the bamboo circus and the inquiry. So the whole theme of the event was just extending this experiment And in a way, it's that opening up of the question to the everybody that has enabled us to make friends with so many people. Our international collaborators came over. Andy Street was there, the mayor of the Metro Mayor, Bruntwood developers. We convened a kind of a real summit of people who are committed to using sustainable materials in construction and design. And that was the beginning of what happened next. So that's the film I didn't show you, but as I said, I wanted to gallop on. So it's not really the beginning, but that was the first manifestation of this bamboo stuff in a high profile public context. And we made wonderful films which served us very well as ambassadors. So this is what happened next. I'm going to give you lists now, mainly. What I just showed you, that happened in July 2022 as part of the Birmingham 2022 festival. In February 23, a West Midlands Bamboo Summit was held at the National Brownfield Institute, which is part of the University of Wolverhampton, co-hosted with Bruntwood, who are national developers, as in property, construction developers, and the West Midlands Combined Universities, which you might not know of, but they are a body that brings together Coventry University, Wolverhampton University, and Birmingham City University under one umbrella. So our partnerships had already extended outwards to include a bunch of folk who had we dragged them along to the thing in Birmingham, and now they were really interested because they saw a connection with their own agendas. I'll talk about more in a minute. Imagine Bamboo at Keel Green Festival, which was produced with Appetite, who are a Creative People and Places organisation based in Stoke-on-Trent and Newcastle-under-Lyme. That happened in March 23. As part of that, remember this arch, the main thing they wanted to do was to rebuild the arch. This is prototype version 2. We really wanted people to swing on it. So actually 158 humans and 2 dogs were on a swing that was suspended from that arch, and a circus cloud swinger, which was the big deal. So this is a big deal money shot for our partners in engineering and construction, because it shows the strength of this incredible material. Brackets, it was exactly the same grass that was growing in Shropshire and harvested in spring 22 was reused in March 23 to build this. So to exert the forces of a circus cloud swing act is a massive engineering deal. It's literally live testing it. And the fact that it stayed in place, I mean, obviously everyone was happy that it was going to stay in place before she did it, but the spectacle of live testing just made this image one that the engineering partners that we have been able to use to support their storytelling in ways that they never would have before. What else happened? The Bamboo Circus R&D continued through 2023. A project called Imagine Bamboo is everywhere in Liverpool City Region, which they applied for. So Liverpool City Region and its 6 local authority partners applied to the Arts Council for funding to do 6 times Imagine Bamboo summits, 1 in each of those 6 areas, and to commission artists to make beautiful large-scale installations that could tour to the 6 events. There was a launch of a new Imagine Bamboo project in Bedworth, and the Liverpool project culminated in another Bamboo Summit, now attended by even more different people from the private sector and creative, cultural and commercial entrepreneurs who were interested in bamboo as a sustainable material. So bamboo is growing is the hashtag used by the World Bamboo Organization, and we have massively contributed to that in the UK through this project. A few more lovely pictures then. So these are some of the artworks made by the artist makers as part of Liverpool City Region. Here's our Bamboo Circus R&D, which is using that Philostachys dulcis bamboo that we got from somebody's tiny pocket garden in Oxford, and we managed to find some more of it. We've had to build our own supply chains in the UK, which sounds rather grand, but it means phoning everywhere in Cornwall that's anyone ever heard of who's got bamboo, saying, can we have your offcuts, please? And doing barter deals where we go and cut it for them and they give it to us, and da-da-da. That is now been commissioned by Without Walls, which is the consortium of outdoor arts festivals who commission a number of pieces of work each year that then tours to their festivals and everywhere else. So No Fit State are now the producers of Bamboo, and it will premiere at Norfolk and Norwich Festival in May, and it will tour mainly in the UK this year, but also with some gigs in France, and they'll be looking to tour it internationally in 2025 and beyond. So it is a long roundabout route to creating a touring performing show that might more connect to the experiences that you and I share. But it's done a whole load of other work as well. Very briefly, sorry for whizzing backwards. So also what's happening now, Coventry University School of Art and Design, who include architecture, interior architecture, automotive design and product design and graphics, brought together all of their first year students across those disciplines in a pilot bamboo lab in January 2024. So they were all inducted into the Imagine Bamboo cult, as I'm now inducting you in, and starting to experiment with it as a brilliantly accessible material for design and prototyping, but also as an idea, a stand-in for all sustainable materials and thinking differently about the kind of materials that people use for design in the future and now. The circus show I've mentioned, there are Imagine Bamboo projects happening in Nuneaton and Bedworth outside Coventry, and in Cardiff in No Fit States at hyperlocal community. And there's a newly forming Bamboo in the UK group, which brings together our UK-based engineering, academic and cultural partners, as well as entrepreneurs who are interested to work with bamboo to help kind of keep going in this spirit of partnership and collaboration. I've showed you those pictures already. I'm nearly at the end of my story. I want to share some learning points about this question of partnership. And then I'm going to stop. I think partnership is different to collaboration, although sometimes your partners can be your collaborators. I think collaboration is about working together to create something. In the creating, you collaborate. And I think partnership is about shared priorities and goals, as well as shared interests and passion. So I think that you want to know as much about your partner's strategic goals and interests as your own. And that's not the same as your artistic ideas. Neil Thomas wanted to get the message out. He wants to mainstream bamboo in engineering and architecture. So I heard that, as well as his passion, which was totally infectious and, you know, like-minded. And we had a real buzzy conversation. What I heard is, oh, you want to mainstream this, and we can help with that in the context of the Commonwealth Games, which is very high profile. Be open, be empty, and listen well. So for me, that means sometimes if I have got an idea already, I don't talk about it straight away. I talk about the theme, or I'm interested to do something a bit like this in the world, and then I wait to hear what is important to them and what their reactions are before I tell them my idea. So in doing that, I'd suggest that we should make space for other people's ideas, not necessarily about the art, because I think that's where partnership and collaboration are different. We're not saying, how should we tell us your ideas for a show, because they're not showmakers if they're non-arts partners. I mean, if they are, then definitely listen. But if they're a structural engineer, then listen to their ideas about the show. You don't have to take them on board. You can just hear them, because we're the experts in what we do. And what I've discovered is the things that we know how to do in the arts are appealing to non-arts partners or community partners or creative people and places or other cultural partners. For example, to non-arts partners, public events like what we are all good at offer a platform or showcase or profile or some really great photos like the arch I showed you that otherwise wouldn't be possible for them to achieve. So the photos from the projects that we've done in that bamboo context have been used by our non-arts partners as a way of progressing their own agendas. And we're happy for that to happen. In exchange, they give us their expertise, often for free or at very low rates. My discovery in life is that people go the extra mile, whether that's doing things in their spare time as a hobby or doing it in addition to whatever they're paid to do for their job. They do that if they feel excited and inspired, and then they're doing it for the love of it. And that's the common ground, because I don't know about you, but I do what I do for the love of it. And when I meet other people who do what they do for the love of it, then it's infectious, it's exciting, it feels like anything is possible. And that is possible. I've discovered that to be possible in the most unlikely places, including in massive corporate contexts, because the people who are there are also humans, and our collaborators at Atelier One who go the extra mile for us is because in their day jobs, they have to do actual structural engineering most of the time. And we're offering them an opportunity to play and to experiment and to do something that they really, really passionately want to do in the world, but they can't quite justify spending their own money on it very much. I think our role in a partnership is to be the storyteller and to use indicative images where real ones don't exist to build a shared vision and understanding. So those pictures I showed you earlier that you might have been wondering, why is she showing us these? We don't care about bamboo. Well, that's what I did. I showed those pictures to anybody who would listen. And they said, oh, yeah, I see. That's a bit like, I saw this. I went on holiday to Bali and I saw, and actually, oh, yeah, that would be really great because it fits with our eco agenda. It fits with our zero. It helps people to come into the story of the work. I propose that being bold enough to take or share the lead in building and managing the partnership is a really good thing to do, even if your partner is dauntingly larger and better resourced than you. The fact that they're big probably means that they're very, very busy, and therefore the partnership with you is going to be very low on their list of priorities. But I think what happens is in the sort of sense of power structures that you think, oh, well, they're the National Theatre or they're the South Bank, they're going to know how to organise this partnership better than me, and then they never get back to you. Whereas if you at the beginning say, how are we going to organise this? Let's fix all the meetings in advance. This is the process that we want to work with. They'll be grateful to you because you're showing them a different culture of working. And in their own organisation, often things happen very, very slowly, much too slowly for the sort of things that we do as independents and freelancers. I have learned that effective collaboration and partnership takes lots of time that usually you and they haven't got. It's exhausting. It's relentless. You have to figure out how you're going to communicate with people and what modes are going to work for them. And just sending emails and ticking that off to your to-do list isn't good enough. You have to figure out what modes are going to work best for which people. And if that's email, great. If it's, sorry, I can feel Alex laughing now because you've heard me say this before. Just text them. Send them a message on Facebook, whatever it is. I mean, you know, you have, I think now the ethos around working through social media is different. So it's really worth spelling out in advance how we're going to do this and set up the meetings in advance and build in ongoing reflection and evaluation. So at the beginning, what does success look like? In the middle, how are we doing? Do we need to change the approach? And at the end, how did it go? What can we learn? And build that in, put those dates in the diary too, because that's different to project management. And this is my last learning point. Apply relentless persistence and optimism to make it work. That was the first part of the agenda. And now really it's over to you. I'd love to hear your questions and any feedback that you've got and any questions that you have as well. Some people, and that might have been you, sent me some questions in advance. And those are these. So if you want to ask them again, if you recognise those as yours, ask them again now. And if it isn't you, we can come back to them later on. So now, that's the stuff I wanted to share. I'm sorry that I talked a bit longer than I needed to because I got excited and I couldn't see you yawning or whatever you were doing. But now I really would love to hear from you if you've got any questions, first of all, or anything from your context that you want to share. Please don't be bashful. We could all unmute if you were happy to do that, and then we can just have a conversation.
Can I ask, Orit, are you planning on recording this part of the conversation as well?
How do you feel about that? Do you think I should or I shouldn't?
I'm happy to ask that question to the wider group as well.
Anybody got an objection?
Will it influence what people talk about? Maybe.
I think it would me. But I'm just wondering about the wider benefit if this was shared online. It can prompt further discussions with others, can't it? I'm just conscious of it'll determine what I share, I think.
I'd like you to speak openly, so I'm really happy to stop the recording now. And I'm going to do it. I'm just doing it. There we go.